So Pantheon's third week is here with Rolk the Indomitable. And while I already put out my thoughts on Pantheon, I just want to say this is one of my favorite new things in Destiny. So if you don't know what Pantheon is, I'll just give a brief summary here. So far, it's going to span about 4 weeks with 1 week at the tail end of the event, I suppose you would call it, for everyone to essentially catch up before the release of the penultimate expansion, The Final Shape. So the first week featured 4 bosses, the second week featured 5, and this week, being the third, features 6, adding a boss each week, and on the fourth and final week, which will be the 21st, it will add 2 bosses. So far, we've had Oryx and Rolk added to the mix, with Riven and Nezarec being the final 2 bosses to come on the 21st, for a grand total of 8 raid bosses in a gauntlet. And not only do we have an increase in raid bosses for each week, we also have a decrease in light level. So for this week, it's minus 15. I'm not exactly sure what the damage decrease is for Guardians. I know next week it's going to be minus 20 light for receiving damage. And as far as outgoing, I believe it is going to be about minus 10%. So that means you take 20% more damage. Meanwhile, you deal 10% less. So yeah, it's going to be rough next week, but it's doable depending on the Surge as well, because the Surge will add a 25% boost, or rather I think it's Surge, Burn, Surge, whatever you want to call it. And then we've had these other mini buffs as well, like Classy Warfare and the one with primary ammo that I'm blanking on the name of right now. But you have Class Warfare, which is you just proccing your class ability and refreshing it every few seconds, and it's really easy to proc. It's a free 20% damage when you get the ×3. And you know, with that out of the way, that's basically everything you need to know about the activity, and it does go away on June 4th, and you know, it's spanned about a month, and just having the ability to experience a day 1 raid level of difficulty outside of a day 1 raid is fantastic. And the fact that it's here for about a month also gives people who normally wouldn't do a day 1 raid a chance to see what it's like. You know, even if it's just watching their favorite content creator or streamer do the activity, you know, day 1 raids, they only happen once or twice a year, and contests only last 1 or 2 days, generally speaking. So with that in mind, again, it's such a rare event that it's nice to be able to see it in just more than that 1 day, right? So the challenge itself is also really great. Outside of Grandmaster Nightfalls and maybe Legend Onslaught, this is by far one of the hardest activities in the game right now. I mean, a Grandmaster, generally speaking, it's not that bad. The thing with a Grandmaster, though, and this is something I tell people all the time when they're pensive about doing GMs, is that once you learn the spawns, you learn the ins and out of the strikes, when you push a boss, when you don't push a boss, what spawns when and where, it's really, really easy. The difficulty with Pantheon is not only do we get a new boss each week, there's also a little wrench thrown into either the mechanics, or there's like a Tormentor that spawns. With Rolk this week, there's actually 2 Rolks. He has like a little shadow clone that isn't nearly as mobile as he is, but it still packs a punch, so you have to be more situationally aware of where you are, and you also have to make sure that you don't get bopped by both of them. So a lot of people, you know, had to designate one person to baiting this shadow clone Rolk around, and yeah, you do miss out on damage a little bit, but honestly, the damage for Rolk was clean. It was more so just staying alive, which is a challenge for that. And the other thing versus a GM Nightfall and Legend Onslaught versus Pantheon is that you have 3 people in the other activities, whereas in Pantheon you have to coordinate 6 people, which for some people is hard. You know, if you have a group that you run with consistently, it might not be that bad, but if you're LFGing this, Good luck, soldiers, because it is, I mean, it was rough for my group. I mean, we did about 5 hours because we were trying to get plat for each encounter. We ended up not getting Caretaker and Atrax yet, although we know how to get that now. We did get the bonus time completion on Atrax. We just didn't get the score because we were just going for the one floor and we didn't realize that the score was an issue. And Caretaker, we were just not hitting the threshold, and that's something that we'll clean up eventually. There are a lot of good things going for Pantheon. I've already talked about how challenging it is and how that makes it enjoyable, because again, GM Nightfalls, I know I'm talking about GM Nightfalls a lot for a video that's supposed to be about Pantheon, but I'm only using it for comparison's sake in this video. But a GM Nightfall is fairly rewarding, and listen, it's worth grinding, especially this week with double rewards. But there's one thing that Pantheon has over GM Nightfalls right now, is that you can get adept weapons, and also if you don't have all the patterns for these raid weapons, I highly suggest doing it. I'm not particularly sure about the lower levels and if you can do them each week, but if you're someone who is just LFGing, doing the -5 light first week Atrax Sovereign Pantheon might not be a bad idea if you're missing out on some red borders. And I don't know, maybe you're missing a raid exotic as well. You can go pick up the quest from our site and get a raid exotic, ascendant shards, a whole bunch of other stuff as well. It's quite rewarding for the time that you have to put in, and there's plenty of guides out there to show you what to use for damage, what to use for supers, and how to stay alive. So there's almost no reason to not do it. I know a double negative there, but okay, just go do it. Okay, it's fun. If you like grading, you should go do it. And that last thread there brings me to my next thread, of course, which is this is a great place to test out DPS and to see, you know, for day one final shape, what you want to use. And, you know, generally speaking, people probably have a few loadouts already. Edge Transit, Izanagi's Burden, the Supremacy with Dragon's Breath. You know, depending on what the raid bosses look like for the final shape, there's going to be a plethora of different options for everyone to use. But this, again, gives you a nice feel for that. And if you have a raid team that you're running with day one, this is a great chance to, again, build up that cohesiveness, the communication. I don't know about you guys, but me and my clan, we haven't been doing a ton of raiding recently, you know, trying to take a step back away from Destiny before Final Shape comes out, because we're all going to be gremlins when that comes out. So, you know, this is a perfect opportunity to dive into raids. And another thing that's great is, again, the rotating bosses does keep everything fresh. Whereas if you're doing one raid with similar mechanics, it gets boring very quickly. Switching between mechanics and the variety in which your DPS goes. I mean, for Golgoth, you can use Whisper, you can use Rockets. For Atrax, you know, you use Wormy, Explicator, Rockets. I mean, generally speaking, you can use Rockets for everything, but with Oryx, Whisper is a much safer call and is a lot more consistent and maybe a little bit more ammo efficient as well. Maybe like a little bit less too, depending on your ammo drops. So with Rolk, you can use Thunderlord. Rockets, again, Rockets are just easier, I suppose. It depends on what your fire team runs, what they have, what they don't have. And again, the diversity in the encounters and as well as what you can use for damage is also, again, it's fun. And it lets you figure out what you like to do for damage as opposed to what you don't like. So again, it's a great place for all of these things, for finding a challenging experience, getting some nice rewards, getting some practice in before final shape, and yeah. Anyways, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Pantheon. We have one more week to go, and it will obviously be the most challenging week of raiding that we've had in a very long time, because it's 8 bosses on -20 and -10 outgoing damage. So if you have a Destiny Raider in your family and they're going to be attempting this next week and you're, you know, not attempting it, pray for that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed. Again, comment your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.